South American country with diverse landscape. It is reported that in 2020, Ecuador scored 0.76, which shows a gender gap of approximately 24%, which means women are 24% less likely than men to have equal opportunities. The same year, the gender gap in the area of political sphere was as diverse as 68%. So joining me, Cristina Loayza from Ecuador, who has been a gender officer at CARE, a project manager at UNDP, and she has been actively working for human and for many human organizations. So thank you so much, Cristina, for joining us. We welcome you.
Hi, Rajni. Hi, yeah, this is me, Cristina from Ecuador, and I got an invitation from Rajni, and I'm here to share a little bit of my experience with you all.
We welcome you on our show, Cristina. Okay, so Cristina, let's start our conversation, and it would be definitely great to understand more about your entrepreneurial journey briefly, and what was the reason that made you to serve humankind? Were there any circumstances, or it was just by choice you wanted to do something for humanity?
Okay, sure. I'm from Ecuador, and I studied design in Ecuador. And as soon as I finished school, I got a job with the Charles Darwin Research Station in the Galapagos Islands. And I got involved with environmental issues at the beginning. And also one of my parts of my jobs in the Galapagos Islands was to collect data from fishermen because of the poaching activities they used to do there, and they are still doing there. So I got involved with project management and data collection and environmental concerns. So a little bit the perspective of my life changed quite a bit with this experience.
Mm-hmm.
I was there working. I got the opportunity to get a scholarship in the United States. I went to Boston, to Brandeis University, to study international sustainable development. And since then, everything changed completely. I got involved with development issues, including nutrition, water and sanitation, energy for poor people, transportation, local development, human mobility, refugees, gender, natural risk management, and among other issues. So I have been working in this wide variety of areas, but the focus of my area is management, project management.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how I got involved. And the reason, because I'm still working with development issues, particularly poverty, it's because I think this is the best way I found to provide the next generations a better future. And this is the reason why I'm still working in this area so far.
Right. Wonderful, wonderful. So, Cristina, you have been in charge of working on gender operational for CARE NGO also, and you have worked very closely with Venezuelan immigrants. So please give us more insight into the challenges that you faced during your tenure.
Okay, sure. Before that, I'm just gonna give you a little feedback of what is happening here with the Venezuelan refugees.
Yeah.
Well, so far until now, there is about 5 million Venezuelan refugees that left the country because of social economic instability and this ongoing humanitarian crisis.
Mm-hmm.
About 4 million of these immigrants are in the Latin American region.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mostly Colombia and Brazil, mostly in those areas, in those countries. It's one of the characteristics, one of the main issues about this immigration process is that Venezuelan refugees walk by foot to other places. This is really sad to see. You can see them on the streets, on the highways, walking.
I have seen in news actually. Yes.
Yeah, they walk with their little bags and with little stuff, and they walk by feet. Most of them, of course, the ones that go to South America and stay in South America, the ones that go to the Caribbean, they go by boat in really dangerous conditions, and most of them don't know where they're gonna go. They have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
And also, it's very common to find out that they leave the country, Venezuela, without document. So they cross borders without identification, and you as a country cannot get enough data of what is going on with this mobilization.
Mm-hmm.
And the highest risk of this is that they are in the hands of smugglers and traffickers.
Mm-hmm.
And this is very common to happen, particularly with young girls that
Mm-hmm.
are used for prostitution and trafficking.
Yes, yes,
This
yes.
is very common, no?
Right.
So, and most of the, on the other hand, most of the governments, there are a lot of help provided by most of the South American countries to Venezuelans, but most of the help and assistance they provide is they provide a emergency kits, temporary accommodation, food and health, livelihood opportunities, humanitarian transportation, protection services, relocation, family reunification, and integration. But there is also in Ecuador, at least, this highlight about providing assistance to survivors of gender-based violence trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a lot of xenophobia. So they
Mm-hmm.
are trying to provide ways how to handle xenophobia with locals.
Mm-hmm.
So within this context, what I did in CARE was the general operational plan for a program
Mm-hmm.
that was run between Venezuela, Colombia, and Ecuador.
Okay.
So this was the administrative part of the project,
Mm-hmm.
and I just saw a little bit of the implementation of the project.
Mm-hmm.
But what I can tell you about this is each country has different gender issues.
Yes.
The gender conditions in Venezuela are, for example, women are used for heavy household work. They have a lot of responsibility because their men, their husbands, their sons, their fathers leave the country.
Mm-hmm.
So they carry all the responsibility of the household with
Mm-hmm.
children. So this is a heavier responsibility for them than the women that are with their children in Ecuador or Colombia.
Mm-hmm.
This
Okay.
was one of the main things I saw when I was doing the project there, where I was doing interviews, qualitative interviews.
Right. Right.
In Colombia and Ecuador, the problems are young girls, as I told you. Smuggling, sex trafficking is terrible.
Oh my
It's
God.
terrible.
Oh.
And well, another challenge we had as a project is like we have so much limited budget,
Mm-hmm.
and allocating all the activities that you were planning to do as a project,
Mm-hmm.
particularly monitoring and evaluation activities, becomes a challenge. It becomes a challenge
Mm.
in terms of administrative purposes because you don't know exactly whether your intervention is going to be efficient or not,
Mm-hmm.
because collecting data and doing field works is extremely expensive.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, and you're talking about the mobilization and humanitarian mobilization of thousands of kilometers all over the continent. So it's really hard to control these things with limited budget. It's very
Right.
limited the assistance you can provide.
Right. Right. So,
And,
Christina, can you tell me what those immigrants, women, are doing nowadays in Ecuador? Have they got some employment, or how they are supporting themselves financially, economically?
that before, well, it changed drastically after the COVID-19, changed drastically.
Hmm.
The government of Ecuador, what did was provide and accelerate the processes of regularization of these
Hmm.
people in the country. It
Hmm.
provide around, I think, I'm not sure, I need to check out the data with you.
Okay.
So, as you know, immigrants right now represent a huge part of the economy in this country.
Hmm.
They're well, there were job losses with the COVID in Ecuador,
Mm-hmm.
and immigrants are working for less wages than they used to work before.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Many of them have been on fire or just laid out from their jobs. Some of them have left the country
Mm-hmm.
by foot again, have left the country because in Venezuela, at least they're going to have some land to grow some food.
Yes.
Yeah, this was probably the biggest highlight we saw them, but there are another group of people that stay here in the country.
Okay.
You can see people on the streets begging for food, for candies, and with the children,
Mm.
they are with children begging food. And I really wish I had more data and information about what is going on in the last reports of the country.
Okay. Okay. Now, on these issues that you shared with us of Venezuelan women immigrants, what are the key issues of Ecuadorian women when it comes to gender equality? What issues you have been,
The
addressing
main
or yeah.
issues, we have quite a few, there is something that Ecuador has built up in the last 10 years.
Okay.
It's about the progress in development of adequate legal institutions and
Mm-hmm.
frameworks for gender equality, its enforcement,
Mm-hmm.
and the regulation has improved quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But despite all the efforts with done with gender issues, there are some challenges, mostly at the political level.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, Ecuador, in the last 10 years, Ecuador had a lot of female representation in political institutions,
Mm-hmm.
but women for minority ethnic groups are not represented, or poorly represented.
Right. Right.
Yeah, in the 2 years ago, the main head of the Justice Department was named, and it was an Afro-Ecuadorian descendant, a woman,
Mm-hmm.
and she has done a really important job with justice services here in Ecuador, and has been recognized as one of the most influential people in Latin America.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that is a huge challenge. We hope it still here.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that remains an issue here in Ecuador is the gender-based violence.
Mm-hmm.
With the COVID, it raised a lot. It raised a lot the levels of gender violence,
Mm-hmm.
mostly psychological and physical abuse within the household against children and women.
Mm-hmm.
That raised a lot. And besides that, there is another gender concern that is a health concern, public health concern.
Mm-hmm.
The teenage pregnancy rate is huge in Ecuador. It's huge. It's probably, I think it's the highest in all the Indian countries.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there is not enough data to make proper or address proper policy making regulations here. But we face those things too. And there is a lot of discrimination against indigenous women, Afro-American descendant women, especially in sexual issues and maternal health. And these girls mostly don't go to school. This happened in this particular group. And indigenous people represents 1/5 of the population here in Ecuador.
Huge. It's huge. It's really
It
huge.
is huge. It is huge.
Mm.
And, the common things like labor force for women, unpaid work and household on the top of that. So those are some of the issues we have here in Ecuador with gender.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And as you mentioned that, it is, I think, happening everywhere, wherever, wherever I know in this world, that the violence, gender-based violence has increased during COVID times. So, like you also mentioned that violence, physical violence or verbal violence has increased during these lockdown times or COVID times. So, but what message would you like to give to our women viewers during these COVID times who are otherwise feeling very depressed? You know,
Yeah, I was thinking about it. I was thinking about the psychological and psychiatric things for women and men that are in confined in home, doing homework, doing work, or taking care of the kids. But I think with all this new system after COVID, with this new life that we have to carry on alone, it is important to take care of the mind of people, of women and men and children particularly. And well, on the top of that, violence and harassment in the work is reporting every day. And with the lockdown, with the confining, it has escalated its outbreak. And I think it's important to exercise
mhm,
the mind and spirit of people,
mhm,
because there is a lot of stress and
mhm,
anxiety within the households.
mhm,
This needs to be managed as a public health service
mhm.
provided. But at the same time, I think new policies at the national level must to be addressed,
Yes.
like how to address work through internet in the households,
Mhm.
enforce leave parenting when children are sick or something like that, because everybody in the household gets so stressed with this confinement.
Right.
Mm.
True, true, true.
And of course, there is also financial pressure, anxiety about the disconnection and the network.
Right.
And it must be think too that the access to internet services and for kids to study, for parents to work, must to remain a priority. So I was thinking more about the policy making perspective.
Mm.
Yeah, Rajnish, that is what I can tell you. That is what I can share with you.
Right. Thank you so much, Christina, for having such an insightful conversation with us and for your time, of course. And we wish you all the best for your all future endeavors and projects. And thank you once again.
Okay.
Thank you so much once again, Christina.
You're very welcome, and I hope you have a wonderful life and be safe and sound in these times.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys for watching.
Okay.